He brought his secretary to hiding his wife, but what happened next is too real. It was a night like no other, the kind that shakes your very soul. The town of Maplewood held its breath, shrouded in a thick fog that twisted around street lamps like ghostly fingers. The moon's gaze flickered through the clouds, casting eerie shadows on the slick pavement. And in the heart of it all stood Harold Thompson. He was a man on the run, a local businessman, well respected, or so he thought. But beneath that polished facade, darkness brewed. Harold had his secretary, Lisa, hiding at a rundown cabin deep in the woods. She was as nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. The story around town, whispered in back rooms and coffee shops, suggested something sinister. Rumors swirled around Harold's wife, Margaret. Had she finally caught on to Harold's intricate web of lies? The fear that dripped from her last text echoed through him like a relentless drumbeat. "Where are you, Harold?" The way she typed made him shudder, a tightness in his chest that felt all too familiar. A lump formed in his throat. This wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a ticking time bomb. Adrenaline surged through him as the thought of Margaret's fierce eyes, searching for answers and truth, flashed before him. He could hear whispers in the woods, conspiratorial murmurs carried by the wind. Something wasn't right. Suddenly, a low growl shattered the silence. Lisa jumped, her eyes wide, reflecting the dim light from the single bulb overhead. "Did you hear that?" she gasped, gripping the table edge like it was a lifeline. Harold's heart raced. Shadows danced outside the cabin. Were they out there? Or was it just his racing mind playing tricks? The night was alive with danger, and every creak of the old wooden floorboards fueled the tension between them. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air thickened as Harold caught sight of movement outside. A shadow flit past the window. He felt a cold sweat bead on his forehead. Was it just his paranoia? Or was Margaret closing in on the truth? Panic clawed at him. "We need to leave now," he blurted, voice shaking. He could feel the weight of impending doom hanging over him, but Lisa held him back, her face turning pale. "What if it's her?" she whispered, fearing the unpredictable. "What if we can't face her?" In that moment, a rustle came from outside, a sound sharp enough to slice through the tension like a knife. Harold's eyes widened. Who or what was out there? The consequences of his choices loomed larger than the shadows outside. Would they step into a trap, or was it already too late? Fear gripped them both, but deep down, a flicker of determination burned. What will happen next? The silence hung like a thick fog, smothering any chance of reason or calm. Harold's palms were clammy, slick against the table as he leaned closer to Lisa, urgency spilling from his voice. "We can't stay here. Whatever that is, it's not friendly." Lisa's eyes darted toward the door, her breath quickening as she absorbed the shadows shifting outside. "You think she knows where we are?" "No. I don't know," he stammered, forcing himself to think straight. Each thump of his heart felt like a countdown, a reminder that time was slipping through their fingers. The rustling grew louder, as if a creature was inching closer, hungry and curious. There was no denying it now, they weren't alone. "Harold, maybe we could just wait it out. Let us just be quiet." Her voice trailed off, uncertainty creeping in. His body tensed as the growl returned, deeper this time, resonating through the very walls of the cabin. No time for waiting. If it's not Margaret, it could be something worse. He gripped the flashlight from the table, flipping it on. The beam sliced through the darkness, revealing nothing but a shroud of trees and creeping shadows. But he could sense it, the weight of unseen eyes trained on them, the threat of the unknown thickening the air. "Let's go out the back," Lisa suggested, her voice barely a whisper now, full of tremor. "Are you crazy? If it's out there, then I'd rather face it than wait for it to come in here," she exclaimed, desperation shining in her eyes. With no other options left, Harold nodded. He took a step toward the back door, opening it slowly, the hinges creaking like a warning. The chill embraced them as they stepped outside, the night cloaked in an oppressive silence. They could hear the distant hoot of an owl, but otherwise, only the rustling leaves seemed to breathe. "Stay close," he muttered, edging forward on the overgrown path that led away from the cabin. The fog curled around them, wrapping them in its wet embrace. Each step felt like a betrayal of silence, the crunch of twigs underfoot amplifying their movements. Suddenly, a piercing scream sliced through the night, punctuated by a series of rapid footsteps. They froze, fear gripping them like a vice. The scream was all too familiar. "Margaret! Did you hear that?" Lisa screamed, her eyes wide with terror. "Yeah, but where is she?" Harold's chest tightened, every instinct yelling at him to run, to flee from whatever horror awaited. He took another step. Another. Then, shadows rushed past him. A figure sprinted toward them, face obscured by a mask, distorted features illuminated by the moonlight. "Run!" Harold shouted, grabbing Lisa's arm. They bolted into the dense forest, branches snapping and slapping against their skin, hearts pounding like war drums. Behind them, the masked figure was relentless, its footsteps echoing their frantic pace. "Why are you doing this?" Harold yelled, voice cracking with desperation. But there was no answer, only the chase and the thudding of their own terrified hearts. They could feel the weight of the night pressing down, the darkness creeping in with each frantic breath. Would they escape? Or was this the end of their secrets? As they stumbled deeper into the woods, a thought struck Harold, sharper than the branches that clawed at him. There was a path through the trees, a place he hadn't thought about in years. But would it lead them home or deeper into peril? What awaited them next was either a chance for salvation or the final curtain on a night-turned nightmare. Branches whipped against them as Harold and Lisa raced deeper into the forest, adrenaline surging through their veins. He could feel the ghostly grip of fear wrapping around his chest. The masked figure was relentless, and every snap of a twig sent their hearts racing faster. "Keep going!" Harold yelled, barely registering if Lisa was still at his side. The fog thickened, swallowing sound and light, making it harder to navigate. There was a fork ahead. One path led deeper into the woods, overgrown and wild. The other veered toward a hollow, barely visible through the mist. "Which way?" Lisa gasped, her breath coming out in shaky bursts. "Over there." He pointed at the clearest path, instinct compelling him to choose the one leading into the darkness of the trees. It felt wrong, but the other route was too exposed. With a quick nod, they took off again, the chill of the night creeping into their bones. Tension mounted, wrapping tightly around them as they ducked and weaved, desperate to escape the footsteps thudding ever closer. Suddenly, the sound of crackling leaves stopped. Harold turned to glance behind them, his pulse pounding wildly in his ears. The figure had gone silent. Had they lost it? Was it waiting for the right moment to pounce? "It could be a trap," Lisa whispered, her wide eyes scanning the surrounding shadows. He was about to reassure her when a low growl vibrated through the trees. It felt primal, sending chills racing down his spine. "We need to keep moving, we don't have much time." He led the way again, dread pooling in his gut. Just as they plunged into the thick underbrush, a flash of white caught Harold's eye. Was it his imagination? He squinted into the haze, holding the beam of the flashlight steady. There, nestled against a gnarled tree trunk, was a piece of fabric. "Do you see that?" he asked, his breath hitching as he rushed toward it. As he knelt down, he recognized it part of Margaret's favorite sweater. Panic exploded within him. This is hers, we need to find her. But just as he thought the path might be leading them to something hopeful, the air thickened with the unmistakable scent of decay. Lisa's face paled, her hand clenching his arm tightly. Harold, something's not right. He stood up, heart thumping as he scanned their surroundings. The darkness felt alive, pushing against them. It wasn't just the figure anymore. It was something deeper, sinister, and unseen force that was drawing them in. Suddenly, a scream shattered the calm, high and shrill, winding through the branches and curling around them like the fog. It was distant yet close enough to send Harold's heart racing again. They exchanged horrified looks. Margaret, Harold panted, dread lacing his voice. Walking backward, trying to gauge the sound, he stumbled, tripping over twigs. As he righted himself, he heard rustling once more, but this time closer. Harold. Lisa grabbed him, her grip like a vice. We have to get out of here. Now. A quick glance behind them confirmed they were not alone. The masked figure re-emerged from the shadows, eyes fixated on them. This time, it wasn't just one more figures materialized, all masked, emerging like specters from the fog. Harold, we can't fight them. Lisa shouted, but Harold's feet wouldn't move. He was rooted to the spot, watching the encroachment with mounting terror. With no time left, hastily, he turned to run again, adrenaline surging through him in blind panic. But as they shot forward, the path forked once more. One side led back toward the cabin, the other deeper still into the unknown. The choice loomed before him, as dark figures advanced, their low growls echoing ominously behind them. Which way? Lisa screamed, eyes darting frantically, both paths promising only terror. Just then, an idea struck him like a lightning bolt, a chance to turn the tables. But would it unleash a different danger altogether? Take the left. His voice was resolute, but doubt gnawed at him as they veered into the shadows. What awaited them was a gamble, and the price of losing might be far greater than they anticipated. The true nightmare was just beginning. The forest engulfed them, shadows stretching as the masked figures closed in. The chill in the air turned steely, creeping beneath their skin as they sprinted down the left path. It twisted and curled like a serpent, and every step felt like a desperate plea for salvation. Harold. We can't keep running blindly. Lisa cried, her voice breaking with anxiety. He glanced over his shoulder. The figures, now a distant blur but still imposing, hastened their pursuit. They were relentless. We have to find a place to hide. Ahead, the trees parted slightly, revealing a dilapidated cabin. A flicker of light emanated from within, drawing him in. The irony of finding shelter in a potential trap made his stomach clench, but there was no choice. It was either risk the cabin or be caught in the open by whatever horrors stalked them. Run! He charged forward, pulling Lisa along as they barreled through the entrance. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of mildew and something easier to name, despair. Shafts of moonlight crept through windows, illuminating dust motes swirling lazily in the air. They scanned the room. Old furniture was scattered, thick layers of dust telling stories of abandonment. Here. Harold pointed out a narrow staircase leading up to the loft. We can hide up there. They hurried up the creaky steps, each groan of wood echoing ominously. At the top, the loft opened up to a dark space filled with cobwebs. The windows looked out into the night, an expanse of blackness beyond. Do you think they saw us? Lisa whispered, trembling. Maybe, but we're hidden here for now, he reassured her, his voice barely above a murmur. Yet even as he spoke, the unease gnawed at his insides. Suddenly, the door swung open below, splintering the tense silence. Shadows flooded in, the faint glow of lanterns illuminating the faces of the figures. They were searching. The intensity of it hit Harold. There were too many, too close. Stay quiet, he hissed, as they ducked behind a stack of decrepit boxes. Their hearts beat in tandem, the rhythm syncing with the low voices drifting up from below. Harold strained to hear, but the whispers were too muffled. He nudged Lisa, who was shaking. "We'll wait for them to leave," he promised, squeezing her hand, but as they crouched in the darkness, a chilling realization dawned. Every flicker of movement down below, every hushed word exchanged sent waves of dread crashing over him. Minutes dragged like hours, and just when hope began to sneak back in, a figure caught sight of something. "They went for the cabin." A voice echoed, sharp and commanding. "Spread out. They can't have gone far." Panic clawed at Harold. "What do we do?" he whispered urgently. Lisa's eyes widened, glancing at the dusty windows. "If we can find another way out, maybe we can slip past them." And the urgency of the moment sparked a fleeting glimmer of a plan. "Okay, let us look for a way down," he said through gritted teeth, trying to suppress the rising tide of dread. As they crept along the loft's edge, attempting to remain silent, they spotted an old trap door partially hidden behind a pile of debris. Hope surged within him. This could be their salvation, but when Harold reached for the latch, it creaked loudly, a sound that reverberated through the stillness. "Did you hear that?" A voice called from below, closer than before. He hesitated, desperately weighing their options. "Go now," Lisa urged, pushing him toward the door. Just as he wrestled with it, the door swung open with a shudder, revealing darkness below. It wasn't just a way out, it was a plunge into the unknown. The figures moved fast, footsteps echoing on the wooden floor beneath them. Time was slipping away. "Harold! They're coming!" Lisa shrieked. With no other choice, Harold grabbed her hand, and they jumped into the void, tumbling into a pit of shadows, a world beyond comprehension. The fear was suffocating. What awaited them below in this darkness? And as they fell, a single thought consumed Harold's mind: they might have just stepped into a greater nightmare. What lay waiting for them in the depths of that darkness? As they plummeted into the abyss, Harold squeezed Lisa's hand tighter, his heart pounding violently against his ribcage. The descent felt endless, the walls of darkness narrowing around them as if they were being swallowed whole. Then, with a jarring thud, they landed on something soft but unyielding. Harold rolled onto his back, panting, the air thick and musty. The sudden stillness engulfed them like a heavy blanket, smothering their frantic thoughts. "Are you all right?" he whispered, lifting himself up slightly. He reached for Lisa, his fingers brushing against her arm. "I think so," she replied, her voice shaky. "What was that?" He pushed himself to sit up, his eyes straining to make out their surroundings. "I don't know," he admitted, taking a deep breath. There was no light here, only the faint rustle of debris and the hum of silence that clung to the air. "They can't follow us down here, right?" Lisa asked, her voice laced with a mixture of hope and fear. "They didn't see us jump, at least, I don't think they did," Harold said, his mind racing. "But we can't stay here forever." Gradually, a flicker of vision began to return. There were outlines to the shapes around them, textures of old wood, maybe some crates, maybe tools. It felt like being trapped in a forgotten cellar. "Let us try to find a way out," he suggested, rising to his feet and brushing off the dust that coated his clothes. They ventured deeper into the dark, careful where they stepped, each sound echoing unnaturally loud in the confined space. As they moved, a sense of foreboding washed over Harold. He caught Lisa's eye and saw the same realization mirrored there. Being lost in the unknown was terrifying, but the figures above were worse. Suddenly, a muffled sound broke the silence, a low groan that seemed to vibrate through the walls. They froze, exchanging a frightened glance. "What was that?" she breathed, her voice almost inaudible. I don't know, but we should keep moving," Harold replied, forcing his legs to obey despite the cold dread coiling in his stomach. They crept along the narrow passageway, feeling as if unseen eyes were watching them from the darkness. The air became staler with each step, thick with the mustiness of neglect. Each little rustle heightened their tension, turning the smallest sounds into monstrous roars in their minds. Soon, they entered a wider chamber, barely illuminated by a faint sliver of moonlight filtering through a high, cracked window. It smelled of damp earth and decay. In that brief light, Harold's heart sank as he noticed the crumpled forms scattered in the corners. "Are those bodies?" Lisa gasped, horror washing over her features. Harold's breath caught in his throat. It was as if their hurried escape had led them to the grave of the lost souls. Scattered signs of struggle lingered in the air, and a shivering dread settled over them. "Harold, we need to leave this place," she stammered, backing away from the sight. "Yeah, we can't stay here," he agreed, feeling a fierce urgency pushing him forward. But as they turned to retrace their steps, the low groan echoed again, louder this time. The walls seemed to pulse with life, and from the darkness, a figure emerged. A figure draped in shadows, its features obscured but unmistakably human. Harold felt his heart drop. What were they meant to do now? "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice trembling with fear. The silhouette began to move, drawing closer, and beyond it, they heard something worse: heavy footsteps from the trap door above. Their only way out was being cut off. "What do we do?" Lisa was breathing heavily, eyes darting in panic. Harold's mind raced. Suddenly, he saw a small door partially hidden behind a pile of debris in the corner. "There!" he exclaimed. "We have to try. Now!" But just as they turned towards the door, the shadow lunged forward, and the darkness felt like it was closing in from all sides. "Harold!" Lisa screamed as they dashed for the door, the heavy footsteps echoing ever closer. Panic bubbled in Harold's chest. They needed to escape. But what if the darkness held secrets far worse than the masked figures above? Would they find sanctuary beyond that door, or something even more sinister waiting to consume them? The race against time was on. The small door loomed ahead, framed by shadows, tempting them like a beacon of hope. Harold felt a surge of adrenaline. This was their chance. He grabbed Lisa's hand, pulling her toward the barely visible exit. "Come on," he urged, but the sudden rush of movement was met with an unsettling crackle of energy in the air. The figure that had emerged from the shadows spoke with a low, rasping voice, filled with a mixture of malice and curiosity. "Where do you think you're going?" it growled, an unmistakable menace threading through its tone. Harold hesitated, the weight of dread anchoring him in place. "Stay behind me, Lisa," he instructed, trying to keep his voice steady. She squeezed his hand tighter, her trembling palpable. With the shadow figure merely feet away, he felt the tendrils of darkness wrap around them, suffocating. The heavy footsteps above intensified, cascading down like a warning. Time was running out. "Run!" he shouted, throwing himself against the door with all his might. It creaked open, revealing a narrow passage beyond, barely lit by an eerie green glow. Without a second thought, they sprinted forward, the cold, damp air biting at their skin as they plunged into the unknown. The figure behind them let out a chilling laugh, the sound echoing grotesquely off the walls. "You cannot escape what is coming for you," it taunted. As the footsteps thundered around them, Harold and Lisa darted deeper into the passage. The glow grew stronger, pulsating as they rushed forward. It illuminated the jagged stone walls that seemed to close in around them, an oppressive force urging them to turn back. "Do you hear that?" Lisa asked, panting. "It's getting louder." "Yes, I can hear it," Harold replied, panic surging through him. "We have to move." They stumbled into another room, this one larger and filled with unexpected warmth, contrasting the coldness of the corridor. Strange symbols adorned the walls, glowing softly, providing the only illumination in the oppressive darkness. As they stepped further in, a strange noise caught their attention, a rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming against something unseen. "What is that?" Lisa whispered, her voice cracking, horrified. Harold followed the sound, drawing closer to a large, circular table in the center of the room. Covered with dust, it bore a strange map, carved out of the surface, depicting a labyrinthine network. Above it, a small, cracked mirror hung at an odd angle, reflecting a dim light but failing to reveal any image of their own startled faces. "They're searching for us," he whispered, trying to decipher the map. This is where we are. But what are these markings?" Before Lisa could respond, the drumming sound intensified, drowning out their frantic breaths. Shadows danced along the walls as if alive, and Harold felt the unmistakable urge to flee again, but there was nowhere to go. Suddenly, a low growl echoed in the chamber, far too close. They both froze, hearts racing, as a massive shape moved at the edge of their vision. "Run!" Harold shouted again, knowing they'd have mere seconds before the creature revealed itself fully. As they darted toward a darkened corridor opposite the table, just out of the creature's sight, the sound of claws scraping against the stone reverberated through the air. But as they turned to escape, the mirror above the table shimmered ominously. Harold caught a glimpse of movement in the reflection, an eerie shadow darting behind them, hunting them down, its eyes glowing with malice. "Harold! What is that?" Lisa shrieked, but he pressed forward, desperately wanting to shove the encroaching horror from his mind. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, wrapping them in its clutches. But the pounding of their hearts wasn't the only sound they heard. It was joined by distant whispers, voices that seemed to beckon them further into the depths. "Do we dare?" he murmured, fear battling against a strange pull toward the unseen terrors beyond. "Harold, we can't." Her voice was almost a plea, yet he felt the magnetic draw of the mystery. They rushed through, every shred of instinct crying for safety, but uncertainty lingered in the air. What awaited them at the end of this tunnel? Were they escaping or walking into a trap laid out by the shadows that hunted them? As they emerged at the tunnel's end, the weight of dread coiled tightly around them yet again. They stood at the threshold of something monumental, an enormous cavern, filled with the thrumming of darkness. And just then, a voice echoed through the void, chilling and familiar. "Why did you think you could hide from me?" Hope twisted into terror as they realized they had not escaped after all. Who haunted them from the shadows? The cavern loomed before them like a yawning mouth, dark and inviting yet laced with danger. A chill ran down Harold's spine as the voice echoed again, dripping with malice and familiarity. He squinted into the shadows, searching for its source, heart hammering in his chest. Who's there?" he called into the void, his voice trembling despite his best efforts to sound bold. Lisa clutched his arm, her breath hitching in her throat. "It's coming," she whispered, glancing around as panic flooded her eyes. "We have to find a way out, Harold." But as he took a step forward, the ground beneath them trembled, a warning that echoed deep within the earth. The cavern pulsed with energy, sending an electric jolt through the air. Harold's instincts screamed at him to turn back, yet curiosity tugged at him like a fishing line. "Stay close," he ordered, trying to bolster their resolve. As they moved deeper into the cavern, they were swallowed by darkness, the soft glow of the symbols now a distant memory. The whispers grew clearer, teasing and taunting. "You think you can escape? The darkness knows all," they sneered, reverberating off stone walls that felt alive with menace. Ahead, shadows danced in a chaotic ballet. He squinted, spotting a dim light in the distance, a flicker that might lead them to safety. "Look there. Maybe it's an exit," he urged, and they pressed on, desperation fueling their speed, but with each step, the light waned, swallowed by an all-consuming blackness that pulsed ominously. The air thickened around them, and Harold felt a weight settle deep in his gut. They were not alone. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind, as if the creature had come to life, breaking free of its restraints. He spun around, realizing the growls were closer now, more menacing. "Run!" he shouted, and they dashed toward the light, every breath fueled by instinct and fear. As they sprinted, the shadows lunged forward, dark tendrils reaching out to ensnare them. Lisa stumbled, letting out a small cry as she fell behind. Harold! She gasped, panic gripping her voice as he turned back, his heart breaking at the sight. Grab my hand! He shouted, but before he could reach her, a looming figure emerged from the darkness. Its eyes glowed fiercely, revealing a malicious snarl, teeth sharp as daggers. Do you truly think you can save her? The voice hissed, rich with disdain. The figure stepped forward, and in that instant, Harold recognized the face reflected in the murky depths of his memory. You can't hide who you are, Harold. Stunned, he froze, recognition igniting a rage within him. You! He gasped. You were the one who followed me here. Recognition morphed to confusion. But why? The figure laughed, a sound that echoed like shards of glass slicing through the air. You think this is about you? It sneered. No, this is much more personal. Harold's heartbeat thundered in his ears. What do you want? To drag you back to the shadows from which you ran, it replied, extending a ghostly hand toward Lisa still on the ground. And with her, your darkness will be complete. Leave her out of this. He yelled, an instinctual fire igniting. As they stared down the creature, the light flickered behind them once more, wavering like a dying fire. A surge of hope welled within Harold. Maybe he could fight, maybe they had a chance. But as the entity moved closer, shadows coiling around it like protective armor, he had to decide fight or flee. Behind them, the light flickered again, revealing a path leading upward, a way out. Lisa! He yelled. Get up! We need to go. But as she stood and reached for him, the shadows lunged, the vicious growl vibrating through the air, drowning out everything else. Harold! Please! He felt time stretch as he sprinted forward, diving toward her as the shadows clawed at his feet, pulling him back. Would he save her before the darkness engulfed them both? The moment hung heavy, suspended in dread. Please, he thought, not like this. And then, with a final desperate push, he grasped her hand as the darkness surged forward, engulfing everything around them. Just as their surroundings collapsed into chaos, a blinding light eclipsed the cavern, swallowing the creature's malicious laughter. As darkness faded, new, more profound silence settled over them, leaving the chilling question behind: where had they gone? The shadows shuddered, whispering secrets of horrors that awaited them still. Yet, in the heart of the unknown, they could only cling to each other and hope, a thin thread in a world of shadows. What lay ahead could either unite them or tear them apart forever. The blinding light subsided, giving way to an eerie twilight. Harold and Lisa found themselves in a strange, surreal landscape, unlike anything they had ever seen. The ground shimmered beneath them, a tapestry of fractured reflections, colors swirling and twisting, as if they were standing on a sheet of liquid glass. Where are we? Lisa gasped, her voice cracking. Her grip on Harold's hand was tight, fingers trembling. Harold looked around, disoriented by the beauty and confusion. I don't know, he breathed, heart still racing from their near escape. The last echoes of the growls faded, yet an unsettling silence replaced it, thick as fog. Do you think we're safe? She asked, casting anxious glances at the horizon that seemed to shift like a mirage. I don't know. But we have to keep moving, he urged, pulling her gently forward. As they ventured deeper into this strange realm, shadows flickered at the edges of their vision, haunting reminders of the terror they had just escaped. Every rustle sent chills racing down Harold's spine. What if the creature followed them? Do you hear that? Lisa whispered suddenly, her wide eyes locking onto the distance. A haunting melody floated toward them, ethereal and twisted, a sound good and bad intertwined. It tugged at Harold's heartstrings, inviting yet foreboding. It sounds like singing. At the edge of clarity, he heard phrases. Victims begging for help, and laughing voices filled with mirth as if mocking their plight. The haunting echoes wrapped around them, growing louder. Shadows darted just out of sight, and Harold felt the panic start to bubble to the surface again. maybe we should head back." "No," Lisa interrupted sharply. "We can't go back. We can't." Her voice trembled with determination. He nodded, gulping his fear down. Together, they pressed on, the song pulling them forward, into a clearing. Before them stood towering figures shrouded in mist, faces obscured, their forms flickering between solidity and shadow. They swayed rhythmically, mirroring the song's haunting tones. The world around shifted and blurred, flickers of reality merging with something far more surreal. "Is this real?" Lisa whispered, clutching Harold's arm tighter. "Whatever it is, we can't go near them," he warned, instinctively stepping back. But the moment they turned, the figures solidified, their voices rising in an unsettling crescendo. "Seek the truth, find the price," the chorus sang, their words echoing like a distant thunder. "What truth?" Harold shouted, his voice swallowed by the cacophony. "What price?" In that moment, an ear-splitting shriek shattered the atmosphere. The song morphed into a cacophony of shrills, the figures' shadows warping and twisting into monstrous shapes. "Run! Go!" Harold yelled, pulling Lisa close as they turned and dashed deeper into the chaos, breathless and terrified. The reflections beneath their feet now morphed into dark puddles that seemed to ripple with pulsating energy. They raced forward, the shadows snapping at their heels, the haunting figures pursuing them with relentless determination. The further they ran, the tighter the shadows gripped them, the weight of fear suffocating. Desperate, Harold caught a glimpse of a pathway veering off to the left, splintering off from the madness, beckoning like a lifeline. "This way!" he shouted, veering toward it. As they dashed down the narrow corridor, the walls pulsed like a heartbeat, the ground vibrating with each step. But with every twist and turn, the shadows grew closer, their whispers becoming delirious chants echoing madness into the air. Just when Harold thought they might lose hope, he spotted a shimmering door at the end of the corridor, glowing like a star in the night. "We need to reach that." Steeling themselves, they sprinted faster than before, terrified breaths mingling with the chilling echoes. The shadows lunged once more, ready to consume them both. "Don't look back," he urged, but a piercing scream sliced through the air, filled with despair. Lisa faltered. "Harold, what if no time? You can't stop." His voice was raw. They had to escape. As they raced toward the door, the shadows shrieked, a deafening roar crashing around them. Would they reach salvation, or would they become a part of the symphony forever? In that moment, uncertainty loomed larger than the shadows. With the door within reach, Harold could feel the weight of both fear and hope intertwining. Would the key to their survival lie within? What awaited them behind that glowing threshold could either set them free or plunge them into darkness forever? As they bolted toward the shimmering door, time seemed to stretch, each frantic heartbeat echoing in the cavernous silence. Harold felt the shadows clawing at his back, a cold breath teasing his neck, urging him to falter. His resolve tightened. They couldn't stop now. Without thinking, he grasped the doorknob, its surface warm against his icy palm. With a firm twist, he yanked it open, almost stumbling into whatever lay beyond. A blinding light enveloped them, momentarily blurring reality. The scene shifted dramatically. They found themselves standing in a room that felt both familiar and foreign, bathed in muted colors. It was a library, the air thick with the scent of aged books, a comforting aroma that instantly triggered a sense of nostalgia in Harold. Yet, the peace of the library was deceptive, shrouded in an unsettling atmosphere. "What is this place?" Lisa whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "I don't know, but it feels safe," Harold replied, scanning the shelves that towered above them, filled with dusty tomes. But there was something eerie about the stillness. The books seemed to whisper secrets, their pages rustling softly like the beckoning call of lost memories. "Do you think the shadows followed us?" Lisa asked, a twinge of fear creeping back into her voice. "I hope not," he muttered, stepping further into the room. His heartbeat echoed like thunder in the silence. He felt the weight of 1,000 watches, as if the walls themselves had ears. Then, in the far corner, something caught his eye. A figure, a woman cloaked in shadows, yet surrounded by an aura of light that flickered like a candle flame. She stood motionless, staring at them with wide, sorrowful eyes. Who are you?" Harold dared to ask, his voice shaky. The woman slowly extended her hand, beckoning with a delicate grace. "Come closer," she whispered, her voice a melodic blend of innocence and urgency. It reverberated, resonating with the haunting song they had heard before. "You seek the truth, the price." "What truth?" Lisa stepped forward cautiously, her curiosity battling against her fear. "The truth of your decision, the cost of your escape," she replied, eerily calm amidst the chaos they had fled. "Not all that glitters is gold. Not all who sing hold kindness in their hearts." "What do you mean?" Harold's pulse quickened as he glanced at Lisa. The woman lowered her gaze. "You must choose wisely. For every action evokes a consequence." Lisa frowned, trying to digest the weight of the statement. "Are you saying we have to pay for our freedom?" "Yes. But what will you sacrifice?" She paused, her piercing gaze shifting between them. "What lies lurking within you may be the greatest price of all." A heavy silence fell. The shelves seemed to lean closer, the air crackling with tension. Harold felt a lump form in his throat as he considered the implications. "What if we refuse?" A cold smile fluttered across the stranger's lips. "Refusal is still a choice, and choices dictate fate. But in this world, fate is not always merciful." Harold glanced at Lisa, whose expression mirrored his internal conflict. They had already been through so much, but what lay ahead might require even more than they were willing to give. "Follow me," the woman commanded suddenly, turning away. "The truth awaits beyond the shadows, but you must be prepared to face yourselves." Trepidation flooded Harold as he exchanged a worried look with Lisa. The truth? Facing themselves? The horrors that lurked beneath the surface of their lives felt suffocating. "Are we ready for this?" Lisa breathed, her voice shaking ever so slightly. "There's no turning back," Harold murmured, steeling himself for what lay ahead. They had ventured too far into the unknown. As the woman moved deeper into the library, shadows danced along the walls, shifting like wraiths. Harold and Lisa exchanged one last glance before stepping into the enveloping darkness, the echo of their choices ringing louder with every step. What awaited them in this labyrinth of revelations and regrets? Would they find the answers they sought or unravel the darkness that had always lived within them? The shadows melted away as they stepped through a narrow opening in the library wall, revealing another corridor lined with ornate mirrors that shimmered like glassy portals. Each one seemed to pulse with life, reflecting fragments of their past intertwined with obscure secrets. "Is this or those our memories?" Lisa whispered, her fingers shaking against Harold's arm as she glanced at the glassy surface. Each reflection showed different moments: faded happiness and radiant joy, alongside moments tinged with regret and echoes of betrayal. "Looks like it," Harold replied, his gut twisting as one mirror displayed a frail image of Margaret, her face stricken with sorrow as she scrolled through her phone. His heart sank. The looming truth was already swirling in the air, the reality of choices he'd made and the pain it brought to others. "Do we have to face all of this?" Lisa's voice trembled, the weight of their decisions pulling her back even as the spectral woman beckoned them forward. "Yes," the woman urged, "you cannot escape the shadows of your past. They shape your present, and only by confronting them can you hope to be free." With each step, the air around them thickened, every breath heavier than the last. They moved cautiously, stepping toward the nearest mirror. When Harold leaned in, the room around him began to dissolve, fading from view until he stood within the swirling memory back in the office, just after Margaret discovered the truth. Her eyes held the pain of betrayal, confusion clouding her beautiful features. "Harold. Why?" she cried, disbelief painting her tone, an anguished plea piercing his heart. Was it all a lie? Suddenly, the scene shifted. He was back in the woods with Lisa, their frantic escape replaying like a broken record, each gasp and scream echoed in the stillness. "Harold! Get away from me!" Lisa's voice rang out, transforming from urgency to quiet despair. "No! Not again!" he shouted, trying to reach for her as the memory wrapped around him, squeezing tighter. "Please! We can't keep running." Lisa's reflection trembled, her desperation slicing through Harold's soul. This moment could either shatter their trust or bind them tighter. "Harold, move on from this," the spectral woman urged, her voice weaving around him like a lonesome wind. "You need to confront what lies beneath. Otherwise, you will never truly escape." He crashed through the surface of the mirror, drowning in darkness once more as he rejoined Lisa. "I can't do it." He fell to his knees, despair clawing at him. "It's all too much. I don't know how to face it." But Lisa remained steadfast. She knelt beside him, squeezing his shoulders. "We can get through this. We've come so far, right?" "Yeah," he murmured, breathless. "But at what cost?" The spectral woman hovered nearby, her ethereal form illuminating a flickering passageway up ahead. "The choice is yours, Harold. Embrace your past or be consumed by it. Either way, it will define your future." With a resolute nod, Harold pushed himself up, grasping Lisa's hand with newfound determination. "You're right. We can't hide from our past. It's time we confront it together." The mirrors bore witness to their resolve as they surged forward, every reflection shouting their regrets until they reached the end of the passage. Ahead loomed a massive door, intricate carvings spiraling across its surface, radiating an ancient energy that hinted at the truth behind it. "Together?" Harold glanced down at Lisa, searching for affirmation. "Always," she replied, her voice steady. They stepped through the door, swirling light engulfing them, and they found themselves at the edge of the same clearing where everything had begun, but transformed a reflection of both their fears and hopes. Margaret stood there, her expression softening as she looked at Harold. "You were all I had, husband. All I ever wanted." Tears welled in his eyes. "I know. I'm sorry." The darkness around them writhed restlessly. Shadows surged forth, encircling them, but this time Harold felt strength ignite within. "No!" he shouted defiantly, extending his hand toward the swirling figures. "I'm done running. We're done with secrets." The spectral woman emerged from the shadows, illuminating the darkness. The shadows hissed in fury, retreating as light poured from their forms. "You have broken the chains of your past," she cried. "Embrace your truth." In that moment, the darkness cracked and splintered, revealing the silhouettes of memories, flickering before him. It was painful and beautiful, all at once, casting away the shame and horror he had always feared. Lisa released his grasp, stepping forward and reaching for Margaret. "We can rebuild," she offered, voice full of hope. Margaret looked between them, eyes pooling as the realization resonated within her. "I miss you, Harold. But moving on needs to start with truth." He stepped toward her, arms outstretched, wrapping her in warmth as their hearts reunited through the weight of all they had endured. "I'll fight for us, always," he whispered, pressing his forehead against hers. A ripple of energy surged through the air, a warm tide washing over them, chasing away the dark remnants of their past. As shadows evaporated, dissolving into nothingness, Harold realized they weren't just left behind, they were buried deep where they belonged. They stepped back together into the light, hand in hand, united in their renewed hope, hearts open to all that lay ahead. Matters had not just resolved, they had transformed. The journey had brought them to the edge of themselves. As the clearing brightened and possibilities opened, they drew closer to their shared future without the shadows of doubt or secrecy. "Welcome to the rest of your lives," the spectral woman gently whispered, her form shimmering like morning dew as she receded. Harold turned to Lisa, a spark igniting in his heart. "Let us go home." Through the glowing expanse, they walked as a new dawn broke, brighter than any past, illuminating their compassionate future as they truly stepped into light, and as they left the clearing behind, there was only the warmth of hope lingering in the air, guiding them toward the life they would now choose. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now, it really helps with the algorithm. And flood the comments below with your reactions and theories. I want to hear what you think of this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing finale. Your support means everything to us. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey.